A silence falls over Nonata's house that feels heavier than usual, as if something unseen is already waiting to break everything apart. Because this time, it is not just another case, not just another difficult birth, and not just another day in Poplar. This time, the case that arrives carries a weight so deep, so unexpected, that even the most experienced midwives begin to question whether they are truly prepared for what is coming next. And when everything starts to unfold, it becomes clear nothing in Call the Midwife Season 16 will ever feel the same again. Season 16 opens in a world that looks familiar on the surface, but feels quietly unsettled underneath. Life in Poplar continues, mothers still need care, babies are still being born, and the midwives still rush from one emergency to another. But there is a strange tension in the air, like everyone is waiting for something they cannot name. Nonata's house, once a place of steady comfort, now feels like it is standing on uncertain ground. The changes from the past season have not healed completely, and every character is carrying a quiet, emotional weight they try not to speak about. Then comes the case that changes everything. It begins like any other call. A woman in distress, a pregnancy that needs urgent attention, a situation that seems difficult, but manageable. The midwives respond as they always do, with calm urgency and professional care. But very quickly, something about this case feels different. There are signs that do not make immediate sense, small details that do not fit together, a history that is unclear, and a patient who seems to be hiding more pain than she is willing to admit. At first, it feels like just another complicated delivery. But as time passes, the situation begins to shift in ways no one expects. The medical challenge is not the only concern. There is something emotional, something deeply personal, hidden underneath the surface. The midwives start to realize that this case is not only about bringing a baby safely into the world, it is about uncovering a truth that has been buried for too long. As pressure builds, the atmosphere inside Nonata's house becomes heavier. Conversations grow more serious. Even the smallest decisions carry consequences. The team that once worked in smooth harmony now finds itself pulled into uncertainty. Some believe they understand what is happening, while others feel that something important is being overlooked. This quiet disagreement creates tension that spreads slowly but steadily among them. And at the center of it all is a mother who seems to be holding back a story that could change everything. The more the midwives try to help her, the more complicated the situation becomes. Emotional walls begin to break, but not in a simple or clean way. Instead, they break in fragments, revealing pieces of a painful past that no one was prepared for. It becomes clear that this is not just a medical case. It is a story shaped by fear, sacrifice, and decisions made under impossible circumstances. And just when they think they are getting closer to the truth, something happens that shakes their understanding completely. As the case deepens, the midwives begin to realize they are standing inside something far more fragile than they first believed. What was once seen as a difficult pregnancy slowly transforms into a situation filled with emotional complexity and hidden fear. The patient, once quiet and withdrawn, starts revealing small pieces of her truth, but each answer only creates more questions. Nothing fits together in a simple way. Every detail feels like part of a larger story that has been carefully buried for years. At Nonata's house, the atmosphere shifts even further. The usual rhythm of work feels disrupted. Calls come in, decisions are made quickly, but the sense of certainty is gone. Even the most experienced midwives find themselves second-guessing their instincts. It is not that they lack skill, but that the situation itself refuses to behave like anything they have faced before. There is an emotional weight attached to this case that begins to affect everyone involved. The woman at the center of it all becomes more than just a patient. She becomes a reflection of something deeper, something that touches themes of loss, silence, and survival. The midwives begin to understand that her fear is not just about the birth itself, but about what the birth might reveal. There is a truth she is trying to protect, even if it comes at a personal cost. And the more they care for her, the more they feel the pressure of that hidden truth pressing against them. Meanwhile, tensions quietly rise within the team. Some believe they should push harder for answers, while others feel that patience and compassion are the only way forward. This difference in approach creates subtle fractures in their unity. Not open conflict, but something more dangerous. uncertainty between people who normally trust each other without question. And in a place like Noneta's house, even small doubts can grow into something much larger. As the pregnancy progresses, unexpected complications begin to appear. What should have been a straightforward medical journey becomes unpredictable. Each development feels like another layer being added to an already heavy situation. The midwives work tirelessly, but there is a growing sense that they are not in full control anymore. It is as if the case itself is moving in a direction no one can stop. And then, a moment arrives that changes everything they thought they understood. A single revelation, small in words but enormous in meaning, forces them to reconsider the entire situation. Suddenly, the emotional foundation of the case shifts. What they believe to be true no longer feels certain. And what they once saw as a simple struggle for survival now feels like something much more complicated, tied to choices made long before they ever arrived. In that moment, the case stops being just a medical emergency. It becomes something far more personal, something that begins to reach into the lives of everyone involved, quietly reshaping their understanding of trust, responsibility, and the fragile line between helping someone and uncovering a pain they may never be ready to face. And as the truth edges closer to the surface, one question begins to grow stronger than all others. How far can they go to help before everything begins to fall apart? As the truth slowly begins to surface, nothing at Noneta's house feels stable anymore. The case that once seemed like a difficult but manageable situation has now turned into something deeply unsettling. Every new detail uncovered brings both clarity and confusion at the same time. It is as if the more they learn, the less certain they become about what is right, what is wrong, and what should happen next. The patient's story, once hidden behind silence and fear, now starts to reveal its full emotional weight. It is not just about a pregnancy anymore. It is about a life shaped by hardship, difficult choices, and moments that cannot easily be explained. The midwives begin to understand that she is not only fighting for her child, but also fighting against memories and consequences she has carried alone for far too long. This realization changes the way they approach her completely. Compassion becomes heavier because now it carries the burden of knowing too much. Inside Noneta's house, emotions begin to run deeper than ever before. What started as professional concern turns into personal involvement. The midwives find themselves emotionally connected to a story that is not theirs, yet affects them in powerful ways. Some struggle to stay objective, while others feel they can no longer separate duty from empathy. The balance they have always maintained begins to blur, and that blur creates tension that cannot easily be ignored. At the same time, the medical situation becomes more critical. Complications arise that demand immediate decisions, and every choice carries consequences that feel irreversible. The pressure inside the delivery room grows heavier, not just because of the medical risk, but because of everything emotionally attached to it. It is no longer just about saving 2 lives. It is about understanding what those lives represent and what their survival might mean in the long run. And just when it feels like the situation cannot become more intense, it does. A final revelation emerges, not loud or dramatic, but quiet and devastating in its impact. It changes the entire meaning of the case. What the midwives thought was the truth turns out to be only part of a much larger story. And in that moment, everything they believed about the situation is forced into question again. Trust, timing, and truth all collide in a way that leaves everyone shaken. But even in the middle of uncertainty, they do what they have always done. They stay. They care. They fight for life when it matters most. Because, at its core, Call the Midwife has never been just about medicine. It has always been about humanity in its most fragile and powerful form. And as this case finally reaches its emotional peak, one thing becomes painfully clear. Some stories do not end when the baby is born. Some stories stay with you, long after the silence returns to Noneta's house. This is one of those stories.